ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूप कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकम्। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरु श्रीयुतपदकमलं श्रीगुरुं वैष्णवांश श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगना रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्ण चैतन्य देवं श्रीराधा कृष्ण पदान् सहगना ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश नमः। ओं विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामिन्निति नामिने। नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देश तारिणे। हे कृष्णा करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधु जगतपते गोपेश गोपिका कांत राधा कांत नमस्तुते। तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्येव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। Hare Krishna. So welcome back to the Nectar of Devotion Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu Bhakti Shastri course every Friday and Saturday. We have been discussing the preface to the Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu, that is the Nectar of Devotion summary study by Srila Prabhupada. The preface is specifically written by Prabhupada himself as to why he is presenting this book, the Nectar of Devotion summary study. The original work of Rupa Goswami doesn't have any preface, but it begins with the introductory verse, Akhila Rasamrita Murti. That will start in the introduction of Srila Prabhupada's Nectar of Devotion summary study. But we have been studying the preface quite in detail because it introduces to the important reasons why Srila Prabhupada is giving this summary study book and some important definitions and concepts about bhakti. In this context, we saw an overview of the preface. We saw the overview of the preface where we saw how we divided the preface into different themes. So paragraph 1 to 5 was a brief history we discussed in one class, and the meaning of the term Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, paragraph 6 to 8. This we have discussed. Today we will be discussing the remaining theme in paragraph 9 to 13, that is Krishna consciousness, a perfection of loving propensity. Now, with respect to Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, although Srila Prabhupada, in a very general sense, gives us the definition of what is rasa, the science of rasa, Just like a man is driven by affection for family, works very hard. A nationalist works very hard for the country. Similarly, a philanthropist for serving humanity. And that drive, which, a family man, a nationalist, philanthropist, that drive which gives him a certain kind of pleasure, that is what Prabhupada calls it as rasa. So we saw that, and we saw the difference between the mundane rasa and the bhakti rasa. If you remember in the last class, we went more into the whole science of rasa. And in fact, we have been going through, in one sense, the overview of the southern division of the Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu. The southern division of the Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu, if you remember, deals with the overview of rasa, that is Vibhava, Anubhava, Satviki Bhav, Vebhichari Bhav, and Stahi Bhav. So this is what we have been discussing. In one sense, I'm giving an overview of the southern side of the ocean. At the same time, going more in depth of what is really rasa. In this discussion on rasa, we mentioned rasa means kind of juice, a sentiment, or a flavor in writing. And then there is a mental rasa, the rasa that is the perverted rasa in this material world with the husband and the wife, the vatsalya rasa or the dasiras. And there is the spiritual rasa, which is the rasa of the soul. So then we saw the material rasa, eating mango, drinking mango juice, or eating good. We get a certain kind of emotions in our heart or happiness in our heart. Then the relationship between hero and heroine, the rasa of this world. Then there is a spiritual rasa with the soul and the supreme soul. And then we went into a little scientific understanding of what is this rasa. Actually, many bhavas give rise to rasa. This is what we said. And among all the bhavas, one of the bhavas which is prominent is called as Stahi Bhav. Stahi Bhav is what is called as the permanent emotion. The mother has a permanent Stahi Bhav towards her child, that is of Vatsalya Ras. So that is how we define Stahi Bhav. And there are other bhavas which are named as Vibhava, Anubhava, and Sanchari Bhav or Vebhichari Bhav. Then we went into example of what is a Stahi Bhav. That is for this halwa, which is rasa, it is sugar. And then we explained that in Vatsalya Ras, the Stahi Bhav will be Vatsalya. And we had to define Vibhav and Anubhav and Sanchari Bhav and Satviki Bhav because all these bhavas combine together to give rise to rasa. In that context, we discussed what is Vibhav. Vibhav is that which stimulates the Stahi Bhav. It stimulates the Stahi Bhav. Now, Mother Yashoda, her Stahi Bhav towards Krishna is of that of Vatsalya Ras. And if she sees Krishna coming, then her Vatsalya Ras overflows from the heart. So the Vishaya is Krishna and Ashraya is Mother Yashoda. So the Alamban is the support for the love. Just like you can see this particular table, it can stand on 4 legs, but it can also stand on 2 legs. So for love or reciprocation, there has to be 2. So Alamban is support. There is the Vishaya Alamban and the Ashraya Alamban. And Uddipan are those which they are spiritual stimulants which stimulate the Stahi Bhav. And we saw in that context what are the Uddipans in different rasas for Sakya, Vatsalya, and Madhurya. And we saw that although Prabhupada speaks about mundane rasa and spiritual rasa, but within mundane rasa, there is the gross rasa, the worldly rasa. This is the Shad Ras, Bhojan, which we take pleasure. And then there is a heavenly rasa, which is also called as mental rasa. The rasa which is related to the emotions of the mind in this world, with the husband, wife, hero, heroine, then the father and the child. Then there is a spiritual rasa that is completely on the spiritual platform with the soul and the supreme soul. And we saw one example of mental Worldly rasa, that is the Parthiva rasa. And many devotees were able to identify the Vibhav, Vishayalamban, Ashrayalamban, Uddipans, what is the Sthahi Bhav, what are the Anubhavas, and what are the Sanchari Bhavs. Now we'll go further into the discussion of the science of rasa. Now here, mental rasa. Now after discussing the Parthiva rasa or the worldly rasa, that is the Shad ras, we take pleasure, when gulab jamun is there. Wow, today is gulab jamun. So if they feel happy, certain emotions spring in the heart. And these emotions are analyzed into Vibhav, Anubhav, Sanchari Bhav, Uddipans. All these bhavas have been nicely analyzed by Rupa Goswami. Now, the second level in the mundane rasa is the mental rasa or the Swargya rasa. A simple example is of mother and the child relationship. The child's beautiful face, for example, can heighten her motherly affection. Her child face corresponds to Vibhav. So, now we are a little bit going into a little higher level of rasa, that is the mental rasa. Now, can anyone answer what is the Sthahi Bhav between the mother and child relationship? What is the Sthahi Bhav? Anyone would like to answer can raise their hands. What is the Sthahi Bhav in the relationship between the mother and the child? What is the Sthahi Bhav? I am able to hear what our Pavana Bala Govind Prabhu is saying. So I would like to see if he can speak it out. Yes, Pavana Bala Govind Prabhuji.
Sthahi Bhav is the Vatsalya between mother and child. Vatsalya.
Yeah, that is the permanent emotion. That is the Sthahi Bhav. So many have also answered. It is the Sthahi Bhav is the Vatsalya Ras. So when the mother sees the Vishay is the object of love, Ashra is the abode of love. So when the mother sees the child's beautiful face, immediately her Sthahi Bhav, manifest. It is there, but it manifests because of the Vibhav. So that is what is Vibhav. The child's face corresponds to Vibhav. Especially mothers who have children who are grown up, and especially when they see the child's very young pictures, when they were just born, or 5 years or 10 years. In fact, that time the Vatsalya Bhav is very, very prominent and very deep. The very deep relation is there. Vatsalya reciprocation is very, very deep. So as the children grow, in fact, the Vatsalya Bhav comes down and children more after the age of 5, 6, then they go out of the mother's protection and go out to play. Then the children like to relish Sakyaras with their friends. So then when they grow still little younger, then they are no more much attached to the mother. There is the attraction of the male and the female. As Shankaracharya says, Bal Avastha, Krida Sakta, Tarun Avastha, Taruni Asakta. So that time there are differences of opinion, clashes between the mother and child. So the relationship little bit becomes, you can say strained. It becomes strained. So when the mother sees, especially although she has a grown-up child, but the photos of her 6-month-old child or 1-month-old child, the Vatsalya Bhav is very deep there, you can see. So the child's face corresponds to Vibhav. Now, Anubhav is an action that results from heightened affection for the child. Perhaps she will embrace her child. This corresponds to Anubhav. So Anubhav means subsequent emotions. That's how Prabhupada technically gives the term in English in his Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu Southern Division when he explains Vibhav. He says subsequent. Anu means following. Following Vibhav is called as Anubhav. So when we see the Vishay Alamban, so there is the Anubhavs, the different emotions which come in the heart are expressed voluntarily in the form of certain actions. Just like the mother opening her arms to embrace the child. So these kind of actions, which are voluntary actions, where there is the use of intelligence, this is called as Anubhav. Now, Satviki Bhav is an involuntary reaction that results from heightened affection for the child. Now, suppose the child is playing nearby the kitchen and the mother is cooking and she's having her attention on the cooking. At the same time, she's very careful and observing the child. And the child crawls and suddenly goes through the steps and falls from the steps. Immediately, the child starts rolling from the steps. And the mother sees this. Her Vatsalya Bhav immediately heightens. And she starts running, in order to go and protect the child. And she rushes there and immediately embraces the child. Tears come from her eyes. Oh, my child, what happened to you? So these tears coming from the eyes, these are, not voluntary. These are involuntary. These are involuntary actions. This is also out of love, but it's not that, the mother tells, please, tears come out of my eyes. No, it happens because of some heightened affection due to certain circumstances in the relationship of that love in the Vatsalya Ras. So these are the Ashta Satvik Vikars. The Ashta Satvik Vikars, we are all familiar. The hair standing on end, the tears coming from the eyes, the horripation, and there is many other 8 symptoms are mentioned in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu as well as in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. So this is called as Satviki Bhav. So we have studied Vibhav, Anubhava, Satviki Bhav. Now Sanchari Bhav, Vebichari, it is called as Vebichari or Sanchari, is an emotional experience that results from intensified affection for the child. Now coming back to that same example when the child rolled down from the steps and fell, the mother's affection was highly intensified. And she rushed and, she kisses the child, embraces the child. What has happened? She sees whether, he's hurt somewhere. So these intensified affections they happen and they intensify the Vatsalya Bhav. In fact, they embellish the Vatsalya Bhav. So that is why Vebichari Bhavs are called as, they are like waves in the ocean. They rise very high and they again fall back in the ocean, and they intensify the Vatsalya Bhav. So Prabhupada calls in his Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu or Nectar of Devotion summary study, Vebichari Bhav as transient emotions. These are transient emotions. These emotions are not always there. They sometimes appear and intensify the Vatsalya Ras. Now, 2 examples I'll give from the Krishna Leela to explain this Vebichari Bhav. It is a very elaborate science. There are 32 different types of emotions. And each emotion has been defined by Rupa Goswami in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. So you can imagine, it is a very, very vast science. So 2 examples I'll give from the Krishna Leela. When Krishna was in the coils of the Kaliya, and he was caught in the coils of the Kaliya, and the news slowly started spreading in Braj, and everyone started rushing towards Yamuna. Mother Yashoda also came, and she saw Krishna in the coils of, Kaliya, and her Vatsalya Bhav fully rose up to a very high height. So these are called as what is called as Vebichari Bhavs. Another pastime is when especially Mother Yashoda bound Krishna to the, Ukhal, the Damodar Leela pastime, in order to punish Krishna. But later on, what happened when Krishna, broke the two Yamala Arjun trees, Mother Yashoda was really frightened, and her Vatsalya Prem actually intensified, and she was feeling deep separation from Krishna. And that day, in fact, Krishna spent most of the time with Nand Maharaj. And then, later on, Mother Yashoda came back again in the arms of Krishna, and her Vatsalya Prem actually more intensified. So these kind of incidents which happen where there are transient emotions which go at very high height and they embellish the Stahi Bhav, they are called as Vebhichari Bhavs. They are called as Vebhichari Bhavs. Now, any questions regarding the mental rasa? Anyone has? I think you're a little bit clear now about Vibhav, Anubhav, Satviki Bhav, Vyabhichari Bhav, Stahi Bhav is known. So all five rasas, all five bhavas combine to give rise to rasa. Okay, now let us go to the most important rasa, that is spiritual rasa or Vaikuntha rasa. Vibhav is that which stimulates one's eternal affection for Krishna. So Vibhav is that which stimulates the eternal affection for Krishna. Anubhav is an action that results from heightened affection for Krishna. Satviki Bhav is an involuntary reaction that results from heightened affection for Krishna. Vyabhichari Bhav is an emotional experience that results from intensified affection for Krishna. And I gave that example when Mother Yashoda saw Krishna enwrapped in the deadly coils of Kaliya. Stahi Bhav is one's eternal mood of affection for Krishna. Shantaras, Dasyaras, Sakyaras, Vatsalyaras, and Madhuryaras. So all the five bhavas give rise to rasa. Okay. Now in this picture, you'll have to identify all these terminologies which we have used: Vibhav, Anubhav, Satviki Bhav, Vyabhichari Bhav, and Sanchari Bhav. Many, all might not be there, but still we can identify. Now I will ask you questions and please raise your hand. Now, what is the Stahi Bhav between Mother Yashoda and Krishna? You can raise your hand to answer. What is the Stahi Bhav? Nitya Sevini Mataji has first raised her hand. So let us give her a chance. Yes, Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. The Vatsalya Bhava between Mother Yashoda as well as Krishna is the Stahi Bhava.
Okay, now identify the Vishay Alamban. Vishay Alamban. Lata Mataji has raised her hand. I'm not able to unmute you. 1 minute. Yeah. Yes, Lata Mataji.
Krishna, Prabhu.
The Vishay Alamban is Krishna. Who is the Ashraya Alamban?
Yashoda.
Yes. Okay. Now here very carefully. What are the uddipans you can think of? It is not there here in the picture, but what are the uddipans here? Especially Krishna coming back from the forest. What are the uddipans? Raise your hands. Ratna Mataji has raised her hand. Yes, Mataji. What are the uddipans?
Hare Krishna Prabhu. The Uddipans can be the flower garland waving on Krishna's chest, the ankle bells ringing,
Mhm,
and his ornaments and the look of his face, the
mhm,
peacock feather, the
mhm,
calf which always follows him, because that also reminds mother of that he's coming.
mhm. Yes. So,
And
many
his friends also can be Uddipan, because
okay.
if the friends are coming, then it means that Krishna is coming.
Yeah. So the Uddipans, especially for each of the rasas, are quite specific and they are quite, pinpointed. Like peacock feather is especially for the gopis, or the garland is especially for the gopis in the Madhurya Ras. So the Uddipans for Mother Yashoda uh, is basically the sunset. When Uddipan are related with the object of love. We have to remember this, and whatever you narrated, all are correct. But since we are not still gone into the deep science of rasa, your answer was quite more in detail, in fact, and it was all the points what you brought out were correct. But especially for Mother Yashoda is the sunset, the evening sunset when she sees her Vatsalya, prema starts flowing in the heart. Oh, Krishna is now going to come back. And especially when she sees the Godhuli, that Godhuli again further heightens her Vatsalya Bhav starts flowing. And actually, then she sees Krishna, and that is the Vibhav. And then Mother Yashoda opens her arms. This is Anubhav. Anubhav is a voluntary action from heightened affection for the object of love. Okay, so I answered myself what is Anubhav. Now, here is Sanchari Bhavs. Feelings such as joy are called Sanchari Bhav that nourish attachment. There are some joys which can be expressed, sudden, jumping and dancing can be there. So here we can see we have covered Vibhava, Anubhava, Stahi Bhav, Sanchari Bhav, and Asta Satvik Vikar can be there, but here it is not clear because the hair standing on end must be there in these pastimes, but I have not mentioned it here in the picture. Okay, so this is about Vaikuntha Rasa. Now, let us go into a little difference between the Swargiya Rasa to Vaikuntha Rasa. Swargiya Rasa and its inferiority to Vaikuntha Rasa. Swargiya is a mental rasa. Swargiya Rasa is broader and more magnanimous than Parthiva Rasa because its subject is more subtle than matter. Parthiva Rasa is matter, enjoying, foods, six rasas, shad ras bhojan. But Swargiya Rasa is relationship in, it is at the mental platform, husband, wife, children, all the perverted rasas in this world. As Swargiya Rasa is broader and more magnanimous than Parthiva Rasa, in the same way, Vaikuntha Rasa is unlimitedly broader and more magnanimous than Swargiya Rasa. In Parthiva Rasa, there is only one relationship, the relationship between the enjoyer and what is enjoyed. So there is no reciprocation coming from the other side. When the gulab jamun is out inside the mouth, the gulab jamun is not feeling the reciprocation. Only the tongue is relishing it. So it is a one-sided relationship. In Swargiya Rasa, there are four relationships. Sorry, the connection suddenly went off. We are discussing the inferiority of Swargya Rasa to. So there are only 4 relations. But in Swargya Rasa, the object of Rasa is improper and unworthy. That is why Swargya Rasa cannot be eternal. So the object of Rasa, because they are temporary. That's why Prabhupada mentioned in his preface that the Bhakti Rasa is eternal. And it continues even after death. Here the relationships, when death happens, the relationship, that rasa, is cut, the connection is cut. Just like the father and the child, the father has affection for the child has affection for the father. When the father leaves the world, the father forgets the parental affection what he has for the child. The child might remember, connection is cut from both sides. So the object of rasa is improper and unworthy. Swargya Rasa is not eternal. In Vaikuntha Rasa, there are 5 types of relationships: Shanta, Dasya, Sakya, Vatsalya, and Madhurya. Vaikuntha Rasa is eternal. Swargya Rasa is imperfect because the ingredients are all temporary. It is these bodies which are made of matter. Therefore, it is short-lived and the source of embarrassment and insignificant fruits. It is a source of embarrassment and insignificant fruits. So Prabhupada, this he puts nicely in his summary study, saying that ultimately by following this Bhakti Rasa, we can get a next human birth. Whereas if you follow the mundane Rasa, then ultimately by karmana, daiva netrana, you'll be put in another body and in the lower species of the life. So that's how Prabhupada is saying. Now, what is Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu going to do for us? The Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu takes us from the material ocean to the spiritual ocean. So here is the material ocean, the Bhavasagar, the ocean of birth and death. And you can see the bank here. So the Jiva is the marginal energy of the Lord. He can either be in the material world or in the spiritual world because he's Tatastha Shakti. Tatastha means situated on the bank. And the Jiva is now relishing mundane rasa in the form of matter or in the form of mental relationships, perverted relationships of Sakya, Vatsalya, Dasya, and Madhurya in this world. But it will keep him in the cycle of birth and death. It is a Bhava Sagar. And the Jnanis who become liberated from this Janma, Mrityu, Jara, Vyadi, Dukkha, Dosha, Darshanam, they come and sit on the bank here. So they are nicely basking in the sun now. They are now out of this ocean, out of, the sharks who completely devour them. That means these are like different bodies they take. So no more birth, no more death, no more disease, no more old age. So you can imagine what is the bliss of Brahmanand. So the Jnanis are Swarup, that is that I am Atma, they are situated on the bank. They neither have material bodies nor they have developed spiritual bodies. Whereas Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu explains how you can now dive into another ocean, the spiritual world, which is called as the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, an ocean of Bhakti Ras, a life of eternity and bliss. So in this Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, when you dive in this other side of the ocean, you have a spiritual body and you inviting us to dive from the Bhava Sagar to the Bhakti Sagar. So that is what it is inviting us. Now this last paragraph 8, we had discussed further features of the Bhakti Ras. It brings auspiciousness, attracts Krishna. It produces a feeling of liberation, moksha lagutakrit, purifies one from all designations, sarvavitpadi vinirmuktam. and it is pure devotion, and there are the 12 kinds of rasas. And we discussed the 5 rasas in detail. So this is the overview of, in one sense, the science of rasa and overview of the southern division, Vibhava, Anubhava, Satviki Bhav, Vyabhichari Bhav, and Stahi Bhav. So any questions now? Now we are going to only study the eastern division, which is in fact quite elaborate, 4 waves. We are not going to study the overview of rasa, but I am just giving you a trailer here so that after you study many times the eastern division, at least 6 to 8 times, then maybe you can go to the southern division, and then only you can relish the other western side and the northern side. Okay, so I will stop here for some time, and if you have any questions, you can raise your hands. Ratna Mataji has a question.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. 2 questions, Prabhu. Parthiva rasa, as you said, there is no reciprocation.
Pardon,
I
pardon?
want Parthiva rasa is that there is no reciprocation, right? So I
Yes.
wanted to know whether there is a name for that rasa. And my second question is, Swargiya rasa, there is no Shanta rasa. Is it because it's not possible, or is there any other reason, Prabhu?
Okay, the first question is that Parthiva rasa, there is no reciprocation. Why there is no reciprocation? Because the object is inert. It is matter, and matter is unconscious. It is unconscious. So when you eat the gulab jamun, you have a relationship with the gulab jamun. There is there is Vishaya Alamban and Ashray Alamban is there. The object of rasa is the gulab jamun, the subject of rasa is the tongue, and there is reciprocation. You feel the happiness by eating gulab jamun, but the gulab jamun cannot express any feelings. Thinking, feeling, and willing is not there in the gulab jamun because it's not a conscious substance. It is inert matter. That is in the material world. In the spiritual world, everything is conscious. The milk, when it is boiling, the milk is a conscious thing. And now Krishna is drinking Mother Yashoda's milk, then my life is useless. So that's why the milk starts overflowing. And that's why there in the Damodar Leela. So there is reciprocation. And that's why the Shant Rasa is there in the spiritual world. And it is not there with respect to matter. And the name for this mundane rasa with matter, Bhaktivinoda Thakur gives it as Parthiva. Parthiva means coming from Prithvi. Prithvi is matter. So that is the explanation. Now regarding the second question, in the mental rasa, in the mental rasa or the heavenly rasa, there is no Shant ras. Yes, there is no Shant ras. There is only because in the mental rasa, there is reciprocation from both sides because both are conscious matters, conscious beings. Dasya, there is a master and the servant. They are conscious of their position and there is reciprocation. In Sakya, there is, we both are friends. In Vatsalya, there is mother and child. In Madhurya, there is hero and heroine. So both are conscious, and that's why there is reciprocation, and that is why there are only 4 rasas. In the spiritual world, there is also Shantras, and this Shantras is again difficult to understand for us being here. That how many of you know in which rasa is Prahlad Maharaj in? Can you raise your hand? It's a very difficult question. How many of you know in which rasa is Prahlad Maharaj in? Yes, Ratna Mataji herself has raised her hand. Yes, Mataji. Yes, Mataji.
I don't know whether it's correct or not, Prabhu, but I think it's Vatsalya.
No, it is Shantras. You'll be surprised. It is Shantras. It's unfathomable for us how it is Shantras. Why it is Shantras is that, as you are explaining, maybe it is Vatsalya. There are no pastimes of Narsimdev and Prahlad playing together. It's only that Narsimdev appeared, killed Hiranyakashipu, and he went back. That's it. There are no much activities you hear of Prahlad and Narsimdev happening. So it's predominantly Shanta, but both are personalities. So that is why it is difficult to fathom.
Aspect of protection, Prabhu, that comes from a parent, right? So that's why I thought it's Vatsalya.
That's why I told you
Expectation of protection and the Lord protecting him as a father.
it's what from our understanding we feel that this is the rasa, but when we study the Shastra, we come to know that actually Prahlad Maharaj is in Shantaras. Brahad Bhagavatamrit, Sanatana Goswami reveals this to us. He's in Shantaras. So that is why it is little difficult to fathom for us now until we have the deep understanding of the overview of the science of rasa and further study the other divisions of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Basically, what exactly Shantaras is I am Atma, part and parcel of Krishna. Krishna, in his Aishwarya feature, oh, he is the Ishwar, he is the controller of the Vaikuntha world, he is the controller of the material world. There is a lot of awe and reverence. And there is distance which is maintained in the Shantaras. There is no question, oh, he's so magnanimous and so there is a lot of awe and reverence where there is no question of servitude. There is no dasya in it. There is only appreciation. So there is no reciprocation happening. From dasya, reciprocation begins. Servitude. And where there is little intimacy that I am Prabhu, he is my Prabhu and I am his das. So there is some exchange happening of service in Dasaras. So in Dasaras, the intimacy is less. In Sakyaras, the intimacy is still more. In Vatsalya, the intimacy is still deeper. And in Madhurya, the intimacy is the highest. That's how it is. Okay. So there is one more question by Pavana Balla Govinda Prabhuji. Yes, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, actually, I was just trying to extend this one. Even for Shantaras, Vidura's name is quoted. So when the Bhavas we talk, the Vatsalya, Yasoda, Maya, and all that, then Madhurya, Gopikas, then Sakya, Arjuna. Then for Shantaras, even Vidura's name is sometimes quoted.
Where it is quoted?
In one of the lectures, I was when I was hearing for Santhabhav, even Vidura Mahashay's name was quoted. He is on the Santhabhav.
Okay, so I am not aware, so I'll make a note of it and I'll also find out. So definitely I'll work on it, because that's why we are not so much, having such in-depth knowledge about this different science of rasas and who is actually. But among what I have heard and read, Prahlad Maharaj is in Shantaras. So another question by Ratna Mataji. Yes, Mataji.
Sorry to trouble you, Prabhu.
Problem.
No, I wanted to, Swargiya Rasa, I'm still not very clear why Shantarasa is not there, Prabhu. Because the feeling we have towards Anil Ambani or Bill Gates or something like that is Shantarasa, right? That sense of awe and reverence and all that is there, right, Prabhu? That won't come under Shantarasa.
Not exactly, because I'll have to find out. Give me some time. I'll find out and maybe get more detail on this to precisely address your question. Okay. I will have to go once again to the Chaitanya Charitamrita and Bhakti Rasamrita Sundar and Bharat Bhagavatamrita to give you a clear understanding why Shant Rasa. In fact, most of the yogis who meditate on the super soul, there is Shantarati there. There is Shantarati where they accept the Lord as the Ishwar, and there is a lot of awe and reverence, and that's it. I am there and the Lord is there. There is no exchange happening. So there is no exchange happening, and that is why there is no rasa there manifesting. So even if you feel that Dhirubhai Ambani, you have Shant Rasa, but there is no exchange happening there. If he comes to your house, then you will definitely have an exchange of serving him. There is dasya, rasa might manifest. So when exchange happens from Shanta, you go to dasya. So that's why the rasas evolve from Shanta to dasya, like that it is. This is quite philosophically and technically dealt in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, in fact. So we'll have to study in detail the Chaitanya Charitamrita to understand this. Many years back I had studied, but I'll have to go through once again. And let me see, I'll go through once again and try to throw some more light on this. Is it okay, Mataji? Okay, any other questions anyone has? Okay, so then now we will go to the last theme of the preface. Yes. So this is the last theme of the preface. Prabhupada's own explanation of Krishna consciousness is the perfection of loving propensity. This is paragraphs 9 to 13. And we will quickly go through this and try to finish it today so that the preface ends. Usually I take 3 classes on preface, so I'll try to finish it. Okay, let's go to the preface and quickly. Now, Prabhupada, the basic principle, this is paragraph 9. Basic principle of the living condition is that we have a general propensity to love someone. The propensity to love is the quality of the soul. It is the innate quality of the soul. And you can see, although the tiger is ferocious animal, but still it has that loving propensity towards its cubs. No one can live without loving someone else. This propensity is present in every living being. Even an animal like a tiger has this loving propensity, at least in the dormant stage, and it is certainly present in human beings. Now, the predicament in today's society is this loving propensity which we have within the family, which was there very, I think in a cultural way, very solid relationships we had because of the grounding in dharma. Because everyone is to follow dharma, that is loving Krishna or worshipping Vishnu. Because today people are living a godless life, this loving propensity also what we have towards other human beings within the family or within the friends has so much degraded because of strained relationships. My goodness, you just can't imagine that human beings don't want to keep relationship with other human beings. They feel it is better I keep relationship with an animal like a dog or a cat. So they feel hurt and become disturbed in their relationships with each other because the main problem is the mentality of exploiting each other. And that's why there are a lot of strains in the heart and disturbed relationships. And at last they feel that let me not have any relationship with anyone in this world. Let me have relationship because that loving propensity is there. Let me have relationship with my dog. And in America, people keep dogs in their home or cats in their house. They can't stay alone because the propensity to love is there. And recently I heard that one lady, very rich lady, she made a will in a cat's name, that all her wealth and property will go to the cat. And she appointed an attorney and two others to see that they execute the will, that they take care of the cat after she dies. So in America, there are yoga is very famous in America, but there is also something called as doga. You can go and search on the net. Doga is dog yoga. So there are studios where dog is also taught to do yoga. Dog also learns how to do yoga, and the trainer is paid more high to teach the dog how to do yoga, because the owner wants a partner with whom he can do yoga. And human beings, he has strained relationships, so he has a dog, and he also does yoga along with the dog. So there is doga there. So this is the level of degradation which is happening today in this world. And the root is because we are not following the dharma of the soul to love Krishna, because religion is not being practiced. That is because of godlessness, this is happening. The missing point, however, is where we repose our love so that everyone can be happy. So the moment, Bhakti Tirth Maharaj says, the moment we repose our love other than Krishna, we only experience misery. The moment we repose our love to any other object other than Krishna, we only experience misery. Now, in family life, as Krishna conscious devotees, our center of reposing our love should be to Krishna, and in relationship to that should be our family members. So in that way, even in the family life, there can be harmony, and the devotees in the family also can practice nicely Krishna consciousness. At the present moment, human society teaches one to love his country, family, or his personal self, but there is no information where to repose the loving propensity so that everyone can become happy. The missing point is Krishna. So where we have to repose our love, we have to repose it on Krishna. That is the missing point. His Grace Jananand Goswami, Jananivas Prabhu once made a very profound statement. He said, Krishna consciousness is very simple. You will miss it. That means it is very simple. You have to just love Krishna. And it is so simple, but sometimes you will miss that. So that is why simplicity is required. Simple living and high thinking. So we explained simple living means to simply love Krishna, and high thinking means to study Bhakti Shastri courses. So the missing point is Krishna. And the nectar of devotion teaches us how to stimulate our original love for Krishna and how to be situated in that position where we can enjoy our blissful life. So it is to stimulate our original love for Krishna. So the deities stimulate our love for Krishna. The Kirtan stimulates our love for Krishna. Now, for us, the Vibhav is the deities for us. And as we, stimulate our Krishna, love for Krishna in Raganuga Bhakti, when we come to the stage of Raganuga Bhakti, anything we see in this world also immediately stimulates our love for Krishna. Like we see the peacock feather and immediately we'll remember Krishna. So then we can enjoy blissful life. Now Prabhupada in the next paragraph, how this loving propensity expands, he explains. In the primary stage, a child loves his parents, then his brothers and sisters. And as he daily grows up, he begins to love his family, society, community, country, nation, or even the whole human society. When the loving propensity is not satisfied even by loving all human society, that loving propensity remains imperfectly fulfilled until we know who is the supreme beloved. So you might expand your loving propensity by loving your parents, brothers, sisters, family, society, community, nation. In fact, there are billionaires who feel for the whole world, and that's why they give a lot of aid, aid for humanitarian purpose. They love the whole of humanity. Still, the heart remains dissatisfied because the object of love is missing, that is Krishna. Our love can be fully satisfied only when it is reposed in Krishna. Only when it is reposed in Krishna. This theme is the sum and substance of the nectar of devotion, which teaches us how to love Krishna in 5 different transcendental rasas. So what is the theme? The theme is the object of love is Krishna for us. And this is taught in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, how we can love Krishna in 5 different rasas. So the loving propensity expands. This is the PPT here. How this is the self, it expands to family, then country, then humanity, human society. But until it reaches Krishna, the self is always dissatisfied. Only when it expands and reaches Krishna, then there is happiness at the eternal platform. Our loving propensity expands just as a vibration of light or air expands, but we do not know where it ends. The nectar of devotion teaches us the science of loving every one of the living entities perfectly by the easy method of loving Krishna. We have failed to create peace and harmony in human society, even by such great attempts as the United Nations, because we do not know the right method. The method is very simple, but one has to understand with a cool head. Now, I remember a very hilarious incident which happened with respect to this cool head. Maybe I have somewhere mentioned it here. No. So once when Srila Prabhupada arrived at the London airport, although it was cold, winter, a lady reporter and many of Prabhupada disciples were there at the airport to welcome Srila Prabhupada. And she was wearing a very short skirt. And being very cynical, she started putting forth questions to Prabhupada, the reporter. And she came to that standard question: why do you have bald heads? And Srila Prabhupada immediately said, why do you have bare legs? And suddenly everyone burst into laughter. And the reporter also started, laughing. So Prabhupada said, to understand Krishna conscious philosophy, you need warm legs and cool head. You need a cool head to understand this philosophy. So that's why Prabhupada is here mentioning that our head should be cool. Ayurveda also recommends that the feet should be warm and the head should be cool. And that's why in the summer, when we go out, it is hot. And that's why we have to cover our head. Because if we cover our head, then the head will remain cool. Otherwise, if you don't cover our head, the feet get disturbed and the whole balance of the Kapha Pitta Vayu gets disturbed. And it, that when you go out in the sun and come inside, then there is a kind of haziness. You cannot think properly. So Prabhupada says you need a cool head to understand this philosophy. The nectar of devotion teaches all men how to perform the simple and natural method of loving Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It is a simple and natural method. It is natural to love because that is the propensity of the soul. Now we have to repose it to Krishna. If we learn to love Krishna, then it is very easy to immediately and simultaneously love every living being. It is like pouring water to the root of the tree or supplying food to one's stomach. The method of pouring water on the root of the tree or supplying foodstuff to the stomach is universally scientific and practical, as every one of us has experienced. everyone knows well that when we eat something, or in other words, when we put foodstuffs in the stomach, the energy created by such action is immediately distributed throughout the whole body. Similarly, when we pour water to the root, the energy is thus created is immediately distributed throughout the entirety of even the largest tree. It is not possible to water the tree part by part, nor it is possible to feed the different parts of the body separately. The nectar of devotion will teach us how to turn that one switch that will immediately brighten everything everywhere. One who does not know this method is missing the point of life. Again, Prabhupada brings up that point. So which verse from the Bhagavatam is Srila Prabhupada quoting here about the example of feeding the stomach or watering the root? Anyone knows? Can raise their hand. Which verse is Prabhupada referring here from the Srimad Bhagavatam? Which is the verse? Anyone? Yes, Govind Prabhuji is here with us. Yeah. I've unmuted you.
Yata tarora moola nisheshanena triptanti skanda bhujopi shaka.
Yes, correct.
Yes.
That is the exact
Similarly,
verse Prabhupada is quoting here.
Yeah.
Yata taror moola nishechanena tripyanti skanda bhujopashaka pranopahara cha yatendriya tathaiva sarva aranam achityajya. So this verse is a very, very important verse, which is quoted in the 4th canto. Just as the branches and the twigs are satisfied, yatha tripyanti tat skanda bhuja upashaka. Skanda means that trunk, bhuja means the branches, and upashaka is the sub branches. By the watering of the root, taror moola nishechanena. Nishechana means watering. And just as the senses are satisfied, yatha indriyanam, by nourishing the life air, prana upaharat, by worshipping Supreme Lord, tata eva achut ijya. Ijya means to worship. All our worship is accomplished. Sarva aranam. So 2 examples here is watering of the root, by which all the twigs, branches, leaves are taken care, and nourishing the life air, prana. Prana is nourished by eating food to the stomach, giving food to the stomach. Energy to all the senses, we get. Similarly, by worshipping Achyuta, we worship everyone. The famous Mahabharat pastime is there. Durvas Muni. What is the saying? I don't recollect. Not able to recollect. So when we try to water separately the branches and the twigs, it's like we are cutting the root. So this is not the right method. The right method is to water the root. So we have to worship Vishnu. Ultimately, by worshipping Vishnu, all the devatas are also satisfied, and all living beings are satisfied. Yasmin tushte jagat tushta. Yeah, that is the exact pastime with Durvas Muni with his 10,000 disciples comes to the camp where Pandavas are staying. And you know that pastime. So Yasmin tushte jagat tushta. If Krishna is satisfied, the whole universe is satisfied. So that is the point being brought out here. Okay, last 2 paragraphs are there. We'll quickly go through it. As far as material necessities are concerned, the human civilization at the present moment is very much advanced and comfortable, living comfortably. But still we are not happy because we are missing the point. So the more human civilization gives comfort to the body, the more the miseries of the mind increase. Because the body is meant for tapasya. The more you give comfort to the body, the more the mind becomes miserable. And that's why you see America is such an advanced country. It has all the comforts of life, but the most psychological problems are there in America. The material comforts of life alone are not sufficient to make us happy. The vivid example is America, the richest nation of the world, having all facilities of material comfort, is producing a class of men completely confused and frustrated in life. Now, Prabhupada is using this word specifically. Many times he doesn't use the word I himself. We or our, he'll say, but here he's, out of genuine compassion, he's using this I, because Prabhupada is writing this in America, especially when he started preaching in the hippie culture there. I am appealing herewith to such confused men to learn the art of devotional service as directed in the Nectar of Devotion. And I am sure that the fire of material existence burning within their hearts will be immediately extinguished. The root cause of our dissatisfaction is our dormant loving propensity has not been fulfilled despite our great advancement in the materialistic way of life. The dormant loving propensity is towards Krishna. If it is not satisfied, then no matter how much ever you are advanced, you will never be happy. The Nectar of Devotion will give us practical hints how we can live in this material world perfectly engaged in devotional service and thus fulfill all our desires in this life and the next. The Nectar of Devotion is not presented to condemn any way of materialistic life, but the attempt is to give information to religionists, philosophers, and people in general how to love Krishna. One may live without material discomfiture, without material comforts, but at the same time, you should learn the art of loving Krishna. At the present moment, we are inventing so many ways to utilize our propensity to love, but factually, we are missing the real point, Krishna. We are watering all the parts of the tree, but missing the tree's root. We are trying to keep our body fit by all means, but we are neglecting to supply foodstuffs to the stomach. That is, we are not giving the soul food that is in the form of, Krishna Katha. Missing Krishna means missing oneself also. Real self-realization and realization of Krishna go together simultaneously. That means Krishna realization and self-realization go together. Prabhupada gives an example. For example, seeing oneself in the morning means seeing the sunrise also. So when we are in the dark, we cannot see ourselves and we cannot see any other objects. But when the sun rises, we can see ourselves and we can see all the objects because the sun is there. So the sun is the Krishna. And we have to see ourselves means by practicing Krishna consciousness, self-realization also follows. Similarly, unless one has realized Krishna, there is no question of self-realization. The Nectar of Devotion is specifically presented for persons who are now engaged in the Krishna conscious movement. So Prabhupada is saying he has given this specifically to us who are already in this Krishna conscious movement. I beg to offer my sincere thanks to all my friends and disciples who are helping me to push forward the Krishna conscious movement in the Western countries. And I beg to acknowledge with thanks the contribution made by my beloved disciple, Shriman Jayanand Brahmachari. My thanks are due as well to the directors of the ISKCON Press who have taken so much care in publishing this great literature. Hare Krishna. This is 1970 at Los Angeles. So Jayanand Brahmachari, everyone is, I think, quite aware that he was one of very, very staunch disciples of Srila Prabhupada. Every Rath Yatra, we keep his picture. He was a pioneer in especially the Rath Yatra program. And he used to drive a taxi and save the money. And he used to earn this money and give this donation to Srila Prabhupada. And with these donations, Prabhupada first printed this Nectar of Devotion. So Prabhupada is specifically thanking Jayanand Prabhu. In fact, in many of Prabhupada's books, which he has actually given to us, he doesn't specifically mention many names of his disciples at least. It's only Jayanand Brahmachari in Nectar of Devotion, Krishna book, which was printed, George Harrison. And then in Bhagavatam, there is Govinda Dasi. It is mentioned in the 4th canto about her. Prabhupada explains about her devotion, that too in the Bhagavatam purpose. So we can imagine how dear these souls are to Krishna, who have helped Prabhupada to spread the Krishna consciousness. So this is where we end today the discussion. Whom is the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu meant for? Those who are confused and frustrated, and especially who are now engaged in Krishna conscious movement. We refer to the Sindhu with that color slide, if you remember. This is the Sindhu. It takes us from the material rasa of birth and death to the spiritual rasa of eternity, bliss, and knowledge. So Bhakti, Rasa, Amrita, and Sindhu. So now what I have done is I have summarized in the preface what is the purpose of Prabhupada's giving this nectar of devotion verse. The principle of Lord Chaitanya's movement in educating and elevating everyone to the exalted post of the Goswami is taught in the nectar of devotion. So similar to nectar of instruction, by studying the nectar of devotion, you will become a Goswami. This is taught in nectar of devotion. We are therefore generally known as Rupanagas, follows in the footsteps of Rupa Goswami Prabhupada. It is only for our guidance that Rupa Goswami prepared this book, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, which is now presented in the form of nectar of devotion. Persons engaged in the Krishna conscious movement may take advantage of this great literature and be very solidly situated in Krishna consciousness. So why Prabhupada gave this Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu? So that we can become solidly situated in Krishna consciousness. It is for our guidance. As Upadesha Amrita was also given how to practice, it's a Bhakti guide. Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu is also a Bhakti guide. This eternal engagement in Bhakti Rasa can be understood by a serious student upon studying the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu or the nectar of devotion. So if you want to know Bhakti Ras, then you have to become serious to try to study nectar of devotion. The nectar of devotion will gradually elevate one from the material condition of life to the spiritual status, wherein the devotee becomes purified of all designations. So nectar of devotion will take us from the Jiva Bhuta stage to the Brahma Bhuta stage, where we can relish rasa. The nectar of devotion teaches us to stimulate our original love for Krishna and how to be situated in that position where we can enjoy our blissful life. The nectar of devotion, which teaches us how to love Krishna in 5 different rasas. What is, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu? It speaks about 5 rasa. It teaches us how to turn one switch that will immediately brighten everything, everywhere. One who does not know this method is missing the point of life. It gives us practical hints how to live in this material world and be perfectly engaged in devotions and thus fulfill all our desires in this life and the next. The nectar of devotion is not presented to condemn any materialistic way of life, but an attempt to give information to the religions, philosophers, and people in general how to love Krishna. The nectar of devotion is specifically presented for persons who are now engaged in the Krishna conscious movement. So why Prabhupada gave NOD 10 points we can extract from the preface. So that ends the preface today. And from tomorrow onwards, we will now be going into verse by verse of the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. I have sent you all the word file. You can have a look at it and come prepared tomorrow. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srila Rupa Goswami Pad ki jai, Shri Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu ki jai. Hare Krishna. Any questions anyone has? What is last? There were only few points which just read out from the last theme. Any questions? If you have, you can raise your hands. Okay.